Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to incredible people doing amazing things who lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is an odd duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Today, our guest is Kendal Netmaker. Presently living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, he actually grew up in the SweetGrass First Nations and leveraging his environment and his circumstances and what he's learned from his mother and other mentors, he decided to do something bigger and much better. He's a four-time Entrepreneur of the Year. He won the top 40 under 40, and not only that, he was the only candidate from Saskatchewan and the only Aboriginal. He's a best-selling author of the book Driven to Succeed, which I highly recommend. He's a top keynote speaker and is a virtual coach as well. And he's given back through his company called Neechie Gear, and now he runs a nonprofit Indigifund, which helps support the Indigenous community. Now, I want to tell you guys, this guy is driven. Kendal, I want to welcome you to this podcast, and I'm really honored, really truly honored to have you as a guest here. I really want to thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me, buddy.
So Kendal, you were once a gosling, and here you are, like you're a full-grown goose, right? You're full of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Like, Kendal, what's your backstory? Like, what got you from being a gosling, right, to leaving the nest, right, to where you are today? And I know for a fact that you have an incredible story. So, What's your backstory, Kendal?
So currently, I'm a keynote speaker, doing a lot of stuff virtually now, like yourself, Warren, and just trying to find ways to adapt and serve people online. Published the book Driven to Succeed back there. I've done Audible programs. I have 2 coming out this week on Audible. Doing have virtual courses as well that I've published online. Before all that happened, I was heavily into retail, to e-commerce, still into the e-commerce, not so much the retail anymore, but I got my start in retail through the Neechie Gear brand. That's the company right there. And so Neechie Gear is a lifestyle apparel brand that empowers you through sports by giving a percentage of profits every year through our clothing profits to help kids that were once like me. And the kid that I was in the past was a kid growing up in my community, single parented, living in SweetGrass First Nation, growing up with my mom. I'm the eldest of 3 younger sisters. And ever since I was a kid, struggle was our normal, just trying to make ends meet. And I remember watching my mom all the time as a kid. She would budget a welfare check right down to the last dollar, right down to the last penny. And I used to watch her do that on a piece of paper on the table while I would just be doing there, hanging out, being a kid. And I remember watching her do that all the time. And then, so that was our normal, was living there, living on welfare. There's no jobs in the community, so there's no way to get employment there. Even if she found a way to find a job in the city, we have no vehicle. There's no transportation. So we're kind of in a dependency cycle, we'll call it. And so a lot of, unfortunately, our communities are like that in different ways, especially the more isolated ones. And the mainstream society does not understand those problems. Unless you go and stay there for a week, you're not going to really understand those problems that exist in our communities. And the more isolated these communities are, it's very, they face challenges that no one in Canada really has to face. That's what people don't understand. And so I grew up through some of that, and I had to find a way to persevere through it all. And sports was my gateway. Sports allowed me to get out of that.
So Kendal, did that, when you said you watched your mom, do the budget, down to the last, probably the last penny, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any, was that, like, that was your norm? Did you have any contrast to that, to look to that, to see if that was any different from the people around you? Or did you have another reference point, or was that just, that was your life, that was your norm?
In terms of the budgeting, my mom was one of the only person I've ever seen do that. She's very smart in that, she knows how to manage things effectively, I guess you could say. So that was one of them. She knew how to manage her money very well, and I just happened to watch her do that, and I find that I was able to take some of those traits into my own life in the way I run my business, and to really also respect money, not to just use it for nonsense. At the same time, use it in a way to help yourself get ahead and the people around you. And if you eventually hit a point where you have an abundance of it, then find ways to help those that really need it.
I'm really interested to hear that, because you said, your mother was the only person that you ever saw do that.
Yes.
What do you think that driver was for her?
um the driver for was her kids. I myself being one of them, and watching her kids. And she left my father when I was 5 years old because they're in a very unhealthy relationship, and she made a decision that she was going to give us an opportunity to have a chance at success, whatever that meant for us. And only way she can give that to us was to go and leave him and raise us on our own, leaving the community in the north called Big River First Nation down to SweetGrass First Nation in the Battlefords, where we were staying with my grandma, or my kukum, we call her in our language. We stayed there for several months until we finally got our own little place, a little 2-bedroom house where the 5 of us lived. And that was where we called home from grade 1 until I graduated high school. And during that time in there, I would watch my mom do these things to help us survive, which was writing down and budgeting the welfare check, collecting our cans and bottles, taking them to the local Sarcan. When we would have valuable belongings, sometimes I would have to go and pawn those in the pawn shop, my Super Nintendo, my bike, and so on. And I remember, it's good because we can talk about this openly now, right? It's like it's all done. It's helped us grow to where we are now. That's the way we can put it.
Absolutely.
Now, so when I go back and we're doing some spring cleaning, I saw one of my old journals from like when I was in elementary. And in the journal, it's talked about me pawning my Super Nintendo. And my mom saw that. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed," But that was our reality. That's how we, that was normal to us. And there's many other things that are normalized to people. And the key right here is whoever is listening to this, there are going to be some things that were normalized to you when you were being raised. Some of them have served you in a positive way to help get you where you are today, but there's also some that are holding you back. And sometimes their beliefs around relationships, money, all that type of stuff. And they can hurt your success if you haven't gone back and realized that, that maybe didn't really was the right way I learned that. Or maybe I need to go back and fix that. Maybe I have to go back and forgive that person, move on from that environment. Maybe there's a trauma that I haven't gone through. I have to get some help with that. So, I like to say that the reason I'm sitting here with you, Warren, is I recognize that at a certain point in my life, there were things that served me, but there was also things that didn't serve me. And I went back to fix those things that didn't serve me. I went back to forgive people. I went back to work on myself. I understood that in order for me to get ahead, I have to fix myself. I have to help myself to get there. And it starts up here.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were just saying about, you have to take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. You may not like it, but everything that's happened to you has helped you grow into the person that you are today. And if you don't take 100% responsibility for it, right, then you become a victim. And once you become
Absolutely.
a victim, you give away all your power to everyone else. And now it's the blame game. And upon that time, you can't move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, especially when you hit that young adult stage, like you're on your own. You have to find ways to make it work. And regardless of like what you have gone through growing up, you can change things to help you become who you were born to be, but you have to recognize that all those things happen for a reason. And you can use all that as fuel to grow. You can use all that as a driver to move forward. And that's, I think, where people miss that blessing in disguise. It all happened for a reason.
Yeah, I like to call it the gift in the ugly box.
Yes.
Right. And it's the same philosophy. So, so all the things that you learned growing up, and you watched obviously your mom is obviously a very, very courageous woman, because leaving her environment, taking her kids with her, going to a new reserve, and stepping out.
Yeah.
took a great amount of courage. And so
Mhm.
obviously you learned a lot from that. So
Yeah.
bring me up to speed, Kendall, on what got you into Neechie Gear? What got you into, I mean, you're an entrepreneur. Bring me into that part of your world.
Yeah, yeah. I started Neechie Gear as a full-time student at the university, studying to become a teacher. So time out really quickly. I don't have business degrees. I don't have masters or nothing. I am a teacher. That's my degree, right? So
You
I
you
have a
went to
B.
you went to the University of Life.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. So when you don't know how to do something, you go find people and learn from them. That's the quickest way to do something. Find a mentor, find an apprentice, whatever, right? Someone that can help you. So as a full-time student, I competed in business planning competitions. Didn't know what I was doing, and found people, went to workshops, went to seminars, watched YouTube, bought business plan software, wrote a business plan, submitted it to competitions. Then I had to learn how to do business pitches, just like on Dragon's Den. Didn't know what I was doing. Did the same thing. I locked myself in at late at night at university on the campus. I go into their lecture halls and I would put my PowerPoint on and I would just practice over and over again until I finally had the confidence to show up. Because I could not speak like this, Warren, but I was very shy, extremely shy, to the point where I would stutter my words. I would mumble. I couldn't be clear with my words. The paper would shake if I'd be trembling. Like that was like me. So I had to change all that as I grew.
Wow.
And so going through all that, it forced me to really get outside my comfort zone in starting a business, getting outside those limiting beliefs about having a business degree. Most people have those in different ways. So I had to get outside that belief and just try it. On top of that, I had to learn how to become a speaker, which I was terrified of. Most people, that's their number one fear, is speaking, like getting up on a stage. So I was tackling both of those at the same time, and still a broke student at the same time, trying to make a business work. And I was able to show up and keep learning, keep trying. And long story short, I competed. That's where my initial seed money came in, was those competitions. I bought some clothing. I started selling out of my backpack, my apartment, and eventually to moving all that to a little office downtown Saskatoon. Office went to more events. I was at different conferences, powwows, and trade shows. And then eventually a little kiosk in the mall. Kiosk led to a store, wholesaling to other stores, online, custom orders. And then I became a speaker.
Wow. So there you are, this young, shy kid on a reserve,
Yeah.
to having your own clothing line, to becoming a world-class keynote speaker.
Yeah. It's been a
Wow.
journey.
That is, and can I ask how old you are, Kendall?
33 last month and a half, roughly. Yeah.
Happy belated.
Thank you.
So to ball that by 33 years old, that's an incredible story. So so now you're doing keynotes now. I guess I said yesterday, we were just talking before this podcast that you did a keynote for the Royal Bank. Um,
Yeah.
that's you're hitting the big time.
Well, I think, yes, that it was these big clients are awesome to have. And I think um, there's something here I want to talk about really quick, Warren. It made me think when you asked me that the first time about, how do these things come up? You have to condition your mind to be in that situation already, of having those type of clients. So you have to condition yourself of the way of thinking, like, this is already happening. Now I just got to backtrack and fill in the blanks to get there, kind of thing.
Hmm.
My whole life, when I shifted everything to the keynote and virtual training and training business of everything I wanted to push into, I had to find out, okay, who are the people that are, at the top of their game here? What are they doing right? Who are they listening to? What are the things they're going to? Then I started getting coaching. Then I went to God into masterminds, and you've watched that whole process of this happening.
Hmm.
So I'd be going to learn from these gurus, doing virtual stuff with them, took their knowledge, applied it right away, and it fast tracked my whole journey really quickly. So that's like the secret right there, is I took the time to go and find ways to learn so I can program up here to get it quicker. If that all flows and makes sense.
It does all flow and make sense, which is a perfect segue into my next question. So, Kendall, I believe that that everyone is an odd duck. And I really believe that we're all misfits, right? So what have you done differently in your life to stand out? What's made you different? And I think your story is so exceptional, because when you look at the community that you grew up in, I don't think that there's very many people in your community that have actually really succeeded the way you have. So you've stepped out. You've been the odd duck. I want to know what's made you different. What's your superpower? What makes you awesome? All right, this isn't about bragging, at all. I
Yeah.
think this is about confidence, and this is
Right.
about it's kind of in my world, Kendall. This is about letting your inner goose come out to play. So, what's made you the odd duck?
I think on a more present standpoint, I got tired of the way things were. I got really fed up with it, and I use all the things that my people have gone through, my brothers and sisters, my relatives, the people I don't even know yet, but the things that they still go through this day, and it fuels the heck out of me, Warren. Like, it fuels me, like, to push myself beyond where I wouldn't have thought that this stuff would have happened. Like being Canada's top 40 under 40, having these big clients. Like 10 years ago, I if like that wouldn't have been up here. But as things, when I first got my feet wet with my first business to the next one and to the next one, I got exposed to everything across this country. I went to all these different communities. I seen the things they're struggling with, and it hurt me. Like, it really hurt me. And so I used all that pain. I used all those emotions, and I fueled it into this dream of building this empire that I can adapt into my lifestyle, that I can help people with, and try to be that source of inspiration for a lot of people that are growing up through similar circumstances like that. So that's where that all comes from. That I would say that's where the superpower comes from, if you can call it that. Like, I don't know. That's where the fuel is for me, is watching all that. I don't know if I'd be as driven if I had a more privileged lifestyle, if you will. I don't know if I would be able to say all that, like, because where else would I get that fuel from? I don't know. But that's where the fuel comes for me.
So I find that so fascinating. I mean, driven is obviously a motto that you live,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think about, and I guess I'm going to come back to this though, because I think it's exceptional that that you being the odd duck, when you took what happened to your people, what happened to your culture, what happened in your environment, and you let that fuel you, right, to do something different.
Yeah.
And I want to dig a little bit deeper into that, Kendall, because what was it that made you so exceptional that I mean, when you look at a lot of communities, a lot of people just, it's hard and I can't do anything, or it's hard and I can't change it. It's
Yeah.
this is a culture that I grew up in, or this is the environment I grew up in. So it kind of becomes a blame game. And yet you, as individually, said, you know what, I'm going to take that and I'm going to let it fuel me, and I'm going to let me drive me to do something different. What is that spark?
Whew, that's a long spark. There's a big trail there, Warren, and I guess you could say that's one of the biggest sparks, like what I just told you. Aside from that, I've been very grateful to have one person on my side, which was, ever since birth, was my mom. Right, my mom was a big is a big driving factor to that as well. Having that one person there that can say that I can always say that she was always there for me. I can always count on her, even though we didn't talk too much about this kind of stuff growing up. I always felt like she was there, and that was very important to me, because I had someone I could feel like I can rely on, I can always be comfortable with. And having her there all the time, and being able to help us and to be there for us, gave me a sense of being able to not have to. You see, a lot of people, especially from my background, their childhoods often, there's more trauma in First Nations lives than the mainstream. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, some of these kids, as young adults, they can't use certain parts of their minds that most average people can, because they're focused on dealing with that immediate trauma, that
Mm-hmm.
immediate circumstance that no one else across this country understands. And so when you're in that moment of going through all that, just trying to survive, maybe your parents are out doing stuff, you have to become the adult now. You just pushed away your whole childhood. And now you have to step up and become an adult right away, even though you have no idea what that means. This stuff happens all the time. And so I had the comfort of not having to worry about that, I guess, even though I had a tough life, and I guess you could say for some people that might look at it that way. That was one thing I didn't have to worry about, was having to be traumatized all the time, to have to go through all that trauma growing up. My mom took that from me. She stopped that cycle. She's the one that stopped it. And because of that, it allowed me to allow my creativity to come out, allow me to feel comfortable with trying new things, allow me to feel comfortable with going play sports, to moving to different schools, to go into university, to live my dream. She made a decision to stop the cycle.
And in turn, then you get to do the same for your kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It's always trying to find a way to make your life better in a way. And so if I can do that for my kids, hopefully they can go help a lot of people as well.
Right. So if I was to summarize that, what I took out of that, Kendal, was that she believed in you.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that was a bit of a deciding factor, that you had someone to believe in you, and therefore you took that as your launch point to move forward.
Yeah, and I think more so on like the personal level, it allowed me to be comfortable up here. Mm-hmm. So I can be creative, so I can try things out, so I can, and if you're always worried about things up here, it takes away all that creativity genius that we all have, right? So it's something that even as adults we can think about, even while we're watching this, is what are those things right now in our life that are stopping us from being creative, from living more of our dream, from following our path? What are those things that are dominating up here in this moment? And to try to tackle those right away, because if you don't tackle them right away, they're going to dominate you for a long time, and you're going to find yourself in unhappy situations. Unfulfillment is unhappy situation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. I just love your story. You are inspiring, Kendal. I mean that honestly. So can you tell me about a time when someone did something for you that left an impact on your life, that left a dent in you, in your universe?
Man, there's lots of those. Probably the one that kind of people like to hear was the my best friend in grade 5 story, and how his family, they paid for my fees. They saw a kid in need that never had a vehicle, that him and his family, Johan, from South Africa originally, they paid for my fees to play soccer, drove me to games and practices. We became best friends. I was at his house almost every single weekend at Attons Lake, Saskatchewan. His dad is a doctor, so I used to watch his dad. He was just, that's where this word comes from, was actually from him. He was a guy I used to, when I would be there visiting Johan, I used to watch his dad, and he was just like a beast, like a beast in terms of how he lived his life. He just dominated every single aspect of it, and he knew what he was doing. He knew what he wanted. That's the key. He knew what he wanted to do, and everything else followed that. His work ethic, you could tell he was a really hard worker. He looked after his body. He was always running and working out. He was looking after his mind. He was always reading something, looking after his family, being there in the moment with them. Like, just everything was on point. And I'm thinking, man, whatever I decide to do, I want to be as driven as that guy one day. So that's where this comes from. And his family, they went above and beyond when they moved 2 years later to Saskatoon. Him and his family, they gave my mom a 1986 Ford Crown Vic. And that vehicle allowed myself, my siblings, to continue to become involved in after school activities. And the rest of the story.
But what was, again, they obviously saw something in you.
They saw something in my mom. I'm the product of that. It was my mother they saw. So as we were as I was there lots, they saw my mom would come and visit and pick me up, or they would go drop me off. They would visit, and they got to know my mom, and they got to understand the struggles she was going through. She never asked for help. It was a kind gesture, a blessing that they gave us. And so as they were moving, they understood that they were giving Kendal rides all the time to all these games and stuff, that as they moved, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. So Kendal probably would have to quit. That's why they gave that to us. They wouldn't have gave it to my mom if my mom was leading a very unhealthy lifestyle, if she was, abusing stuff or whatever, right? They wouldn't have done that. But because they saw my mom was doing everything she could to help us by sacrificing her own needs, wants, and so on for her children, they saw that within her, and they gave her a blessing, which is a car, to continue that thing going for us.
Wow. I mean, would you look back, this was making me think that, of all the ups and downs that you've had in your life, would you say that you're grateful for everything that's happened?
I am one of the most grateful people that you'll meet. Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
The good and the bad.
Yes. I'm grateful for all of it, because without the bad, you can't become great. You have to go through that stuff. Yeah.
And hence that's why you're so driven. So Kendal, what are you doing presently right now to better the pond? What are you doing to better the pond? And one of the questions I have for you too is, why are you doing it? Why does it matter? And I want details. I want to know exactly why do you do what you do, Kendal?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of things, but probably the biggest one that so aside from Neechie Gear and giving back every year, we've been doing that since day one.
And can you describe that for me too, what you're doing?
So when I first started Neechie Gear, I would give back a portion of profits every year. I'd keep like some cash in the side, and I would give it to either sports teams or my own teams that I would create when I first started. So when I first started, I had 3 different volleyball teams, and I was like a coach on every single one. So I was like my my son was like 1 at that time, and I was going to all these like club volleyball tournaments, coaching these teams, and it was Neechie Gear Volleyball Club, and so they would get like, they're part of the brand, and like that was how all began. Was I started coaching, and I was like on the ground coaching these teams because I cared. That was like, and then everything, as I got into retail, I had to push step aside from coaching because I was focused on getting into growing the business. So I would partner with like different nonprofits, different sports teams, and so on, and we do the same thing. Fast forward to today, this past January, I launched my own charity, Indigifund. So Indigifund, Indigifund Inc. is a nonprofit organization where, where we basically where we distribute our Neechie Gear, we give now to our own nonprofit, and they distribute it to people who apply through it. So we can actually watch the whole process of who gets help, which is really cool. And I never really, when I was partnering with these big charities before, you can never really see who's helping.
Right.
You just get a little tax receipt, right? So I'm like, that's not so cool. I don't really care about the tax receipt. I want to actually watch people because I care. I've been through this stuff. I need to see who I'm helping. And so that's what we did. And, hopefully one day that'll be really big one day. You never know where it's going to lead to. But I took the initiative with my sister and my wife to build it and to put it out there. We built the website. We built the process of donating and applying. So anyone who's interested can donate and watch the whole process unfold. And twice a year, we distribute to certain people, certain organizations. And it's that's probably one of the most coolest things I'm most happy about right now is being able to say that we created something that's going to be here for a long time, beyond our time here on Earth. Hopefully, it'll still be going.
Yeah, you're creating a legacy, right?
Yeah.
So who are you helping now, Kendal? Like where's your attention going to right now?
In terms of business, or what do you mean?
On the for the Indigifund, and for Neechie Gear. So where's that going to now presently?
So for the donation wise, those are individuals who apply through Indigifund. So we based on need, we distribute funds, whatever's in the fund, to those people. So whatever comes in from donations, we give it out. We don't keep anything based on that. So most charities, it's like, 70% will go to, right? Because the rest is going to keep in our overhead costs, whatever. And I didn't want to create something like that. I want to create something where you give money. Okay, you give me $10. I'm going to make sure this $10 gets to someone that needs it. So that's the whole process of it. In terms of like the focus of everything, It's Kendal a speaker, Kendal is the messenger. He's sharing all these things to different clients, and everything else flows to either products, to books, to the virtual online courses, to more virtual training, virtual coaching, Indigifund, Neechie Gear products, and so on. So it's I have to kind of pave that path with everything. That's kind of the way it is.
Mm-hmm. So here's my bigger question. Why, Kendal? Why are you doing it? What is that motivation that you want? I mean, it sounds to me like you really want to have an impact, and
It's my purpose.
You.
It's my purpose. And I can confidently say that, and most people don't know their purpose. It's a part of why I'm here on earth, is to I've been blessed with this path, I guess you could say. And that's why we've seen a lot of things happen in our favor, and also a lot of things we have to overcome. But at the same time, I've been given a position where I need to use it to help people. It's part of my values as an Indigenous person. There's too many of my people that are struggling. And if I get ahead without helping, that's unfulfillment right there. Mm-hmm. So I need to find ways to better the whole pond, as you would say, Warren. And this is how I can do it.
So is this fair to say that when you look at it, I mean, would you say that, that your creator has put you on earth in order for you to do this work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Way bigger than yourself.
It's way bigger than that. Yeah.
Wow. That, I applaud you. That's fantastic. You are the epitome of better the pond. And that's the message that I'm trying to get across, right? Is, what can we do for somebody else expecting nothing in return, just to make the world a better place, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You can help people get you can always get what you want by helping other people get what they want.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Kendal, I want you to paint me a picture. What does your future look like? What is your golden pond? You're this wise goose on the pond. You have your crystal ball. You're the all knowing. Right? What picture of your golden pond?
Well, I hope to do more online stuff because I like being home. It's nice to be home and do stuff and not be on the road a lot. So hopefully, as time goes on, I'll be doing as much virtual stuff as I'm doing in-person stuff, but with the keynotes, trainings, and so on. Probably write a book or two later on more, and continue the journey with that, and blow up Indigifund to a national level, hopefully international one day, and just keeping that overall vision of using this platform to do good. Whatever comes next is it's meant to not just put me in a different direction, but to also better the pond and make this world a better place, especially from the people that need it most. The people in our backyards right now are Indigenous communities. They're the ones who need it the most, in my opinion. And everything that I've seen points to that, and the places I've been to. So I'm here to try to do that, and whatever is next is blessed from Creator, and I will use that to try to do exactly what we just talked about, to make this thing a better place and help one another out.
Excellent. So, I've never asked this question before. Now we went through this whole COVID-19 thing. The world has shifted drastically. You're saying, hey, you know what? Actually, I don't mind working from home. From a guy who was on the road every time I turned around and saw you on Facebook. So, what is your biggest lesson, I think, or gift that maybe that you've taken out of this whole situation of the pandemic?
Presence. We are more present than ever as individuals and as a society, and because of that, it's forcing a lot of people to understand what it is that they really want to do with their life. What do I really want to do? And it's also forcing people to go back and heal things, because when you're busy for too long, we have this tendency to kind of push things off to the side because we have something to look forward to. But when that stops, those things will come right back and they'll start dominate your thinking. So this is a really good time to work on becoming better, work on healing, work on overcoming past things that you've gone through, work on forgiving those that need forgiveness, and so on. And just using this time to become a better person, because as time goes on, our world is not going to really go back to how it was. We're in the digital age now. Things are going to become more digital. And, we have to make sure that as we're meeting the new world, that we are better equipped and we're ready as an individual on a human level. We're worked on ourselves so that we can, as we meet that road, we're prepared, and we can use it to help us to get to where we want to go after that. But that's to me, the biggest thing is we're more present than ever.
Yeah, one of the things that I've learned, even about myself, Kendall, is that if I was to look back, the word busy was like a badge of honor.
Yeah,
I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy, and I think we hung on to that as something that was something to be proud of. Um,
yeah,
and,
exactly. Yeah,
and yet we were never really present because we were always off to the next thing, and we never stopped to actually realize where we were.
exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I've definitely realized that in my own journey, right? I've made some major changes in my career in order to do the things that I'm really driven and
Yeah,
passionate about. So
yeah.
I think it took this sort of whole pandemic to help us stop long enough to realize that.
Yes, yeah. I think it just proves the power of um, how people, when they have like these we can't solve our greatest problems in our life if we're not present, if we're not in tune to how we feel about ourselves, our bodies, about other people, and so on. So, you know, don't let it stop here. As life goes back to normalish, don't let it stop there. Use this and find ways to ground yourself right away, so that you can get in tune with how you feel. Because if you once you lose that, external forces will take over that, and next thing you know, you are so burnt out, you get sick, and all that kind of stuff that happens with that. Like this is a blessing in disguise, and we need to use that to help us to continue to get better in the future and to grow.
I agree. So if you look at young, like the youth right now, that are trying to move forward in their lives, their worlds have been definitely shaken up. What words of advice would you give them, Kendall, to help them move forward? I mean, you've lived it,
Yeah.
so you get to be Father Goose.
I would say that the we talked about how some people, they don't take responsibility of their life, and at a certain point in your life as a young adult, you are now in control of your life. And just because your life was not picturesque and perfect, like maybe some people that you may look up to, or that maybe your friends, does not mean that you can't be successful. What that means is it's because you've gone through things, or you're going through things, or you've had things you have to overcome. That is like creator's way of saying, you have an important mission I have for you. You have to go through this to get to what's next. And if you use that and you think of things that way, of not so much thinking why me, but you think of, why have I been chosen for this, and what am I meant to learn from this? What am I meant to learn in this moment, this obstacle, this problem? And you use those as teaching points to help get you to where you're meant to go next, and so on. That's probably the number one advice that I would have to any young person out there is don't play the blame game. Think of it as, what is this trying to teach me? Because the creator doesn't put things in your path that you're not ready for, that you're not ready to overcome. It's there for you to grow, so that it might either point you to where you're meant to go, or where you need to go next to get to where you need to go. So that's my advice, Warren.
That is fantastic advice. One of the coaches that I had along my path, he said, responsible is response able,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And to be response able, and
Yes.
even though you may not like it, right? But you've got to move through it, and
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
and not and not give up. And as Kendal Netmaker would say, be driven. So
Yeah.
Kendall, I really, honestly, from my heart, I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank you for your wisdom. I want to thank you for everything you're doing to better the pond. I think you're doing an exceptional job, and we want to get that message out to more people. And I want to thank you for sharing your stories, whether that be today, but also out in the communities that you've been working with, and with all the companies and the speaking that you're doing, and hopefully a lot more on the virtual end as we
Yeah.
move forward. So if anyone wants to find you, Kendal, where do we find you?
Go to kendalnetmaker.com.
And everything is there?
Everything's there. Yeah.
So your Facebook, LinkedIn.
Everything's on there. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so but we have to give a plug for the book. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
and we have to give a plug for your coaching. So give me that.
Sure. You can buy my book, Driven to Succeed, on Amazon. You can go to my website to check out where to get to it. Also taking on a limited number of clients right now for coaching. I'm working with leaders and small business owners right now through this time, helping them navigate and adapt online right now. And I would love to work with you. If you have any questions, go to my website, kendalnetmaker.com, and we'll start up a conversation there.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So kendalnetmaker.com, that's where we find everything all about you right there. Buy his book, listen to what he has to say. I think that Kendal is an incredible leader and is just exemplary of what it takes to move forward in circumstances that he was given, and to just keep driving forward to make the world a better place. So Kendal, I really want to thank you. So that's it, folks. Here we are again, another Better the Pond podcast with Kendal Netmaker. So we're going to be flocking off here because we're going to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together.